Hello everybody, good evening and welcome to your very own BYJU'S 9th and 10th grade channel. I'm your teacher Aishwarya and in today's class, we are going to be solving 15 very important questions from the chapter tissues. And as you can see, I'm standing in a space with a lot of tissues right behind me. And I hope all of you here are excited for today's class. And very quickly, students, please do let me know if my audio, my video and my screen, right? And whatever is there behind my screen is visible to all of you. If it is, students, please do give me a quick thumbs up and let me know that we are good to go. Yes? So I can see many students are here already. Good number of you are here. Welcome to the class. Good evening, Asta, Ikira, Abhimanyu, Sonia, Shiva, Hiren, Amit, Sonia, many others are here. Good evening, students. Good evening. I welcome you to today's class and I hope all of you are excited for the class. And as you can all see, right, I hope that everything is clear. We're not facing any technical issues because today we are going to be solving some very, very important questions from this particular chapter, right? And of course, students, just to remind you, right, we have done concept bits on this particular class where we have covered animal tissues as well as plant tissues. In case if you have not watched those videos, please make sure that you go and you watch them out first and you come, right? So for students watching this video much later after the live stream, it is recommended that you have at least read the chapter once before you watch this particular video. Otherwise, it will be very difficult in order to follow because questions will not come as per sequence, right? It's going to be from here and there so that you get a little more confident. Yes? Good evening, students. Good evening. I can see good number of you are here in my class, right? So we will get started very quickly. But before we get started, a few things to keep in mind when you come to my class is that I hope you have your textbooks, you have your notebooks, you have your pencils with you, right? Because it's very important you have all of these things ready so that you can write and make a note of all the important pointers we discussed. Yes. And this particular 15 important questions that we are going to be doing today is not going to be just with respect to animal tissues, but it's across the whole chapter, right? So we are going to be having the whole chapter. Now, of course, for many students who are watching this video live, I'm sure many of you must be telling, right? Ma'am, I'm not really getting an idea of when exactly do the live classes happen. So you might find the video recorded much later and you will watch the video, of course. But many of you also tell us that, ma'am, we are not really sure of when the live classes are happening for 9th grade, for which subject. And sometimes you may struggle a little bit. So I'm sure many of you here do feel that way. Yes. If you do, students, please letting you know that for the next 3 weeks, right, we are going to be following a pretty similar timetable of this sort, right? So as you can see now onwards, ideally earlier it used to be Tuesdays, right? But now on Mondays we will be having bio. We are going to start the week with biology, right? So for class 9, we are going to be having classes at 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and occasionally your social science classes will come at 8 p.m., right? So your Wednesday looks a little heavy because you have physics as well as SST. But most importantly, this is going to be the timetable that we are going to be following from now on for the next few weeks, because after that, we'll be having, your midterm prep and everything which will get started, right? Okay, so students, I will take your questions, and Avika, this can be helpful for ICSE students as well, so you can be a part of it because grade 9 ICSE also have plant tissues, both plant and animal, so this will come handy for all of you, right? So to students who are very new, take a screenshot, and today's class is just going to be for 45 minutes. Today we are not having any hefty class. 45 minutes mein we are going to be solving questions. So are we ready for the class? Shall we get started? Ji haan, kyun? I'm not very comfortable with Hindi, so you can quickly go ahead and you can let me know, right? Yes. ठीक है, very good, very good. All right, so let's get started, students. And we have the first question with us, right? So now I will take your doubts, but these are subjective questions which will come for 2 marks / 3 marks. And whatever kind of important questions are there, this will definitely be helpful. This is going to be for class 9 today, class 9 biology, right? So the question is, animals of colder regions and fishes that we find especially in cold water have a thick layer of subcutaneous fat. Describe why. This is a 2-mark question. So identify which is the tissue that is going to be here. Yes? Which is the tissue that is going to be helping these animals? Now students, who is going to spam Menti? Menti is not going to come, right? And in your periodic test or whatever exam, as you all know, right? We know that it's going to be subjective. So you need to please, I request you all unnecessarily not to spam. Divine Bacha, Wise, please don't spam. Please. Okay. So we're talking about animals in colder regions and fishes in colder water have a thicker layer of subcutaneous fat, right? Now you need to describe why. So the tissue that we're talking about here, of course, is adipose tissue, right? And when we talk about animals like who are there in the Arctic region or who are found in cold weathers, we know that they have a thick layer of subcutaneous fat, or fat which is found beneath their skin, or what we call as blubber. And what is the reason behind this? Because we know that they have to survive cold temperatures, no? So they have to survive these cold temperatures, and if they have to survive it, they need to be able to contain as much as heat as possible, right? So they need something that will insulate or keep them warm, yes? Which is why we see that the kind of tissue that we're going to discuss about is the adipose tissue. We know that adipose tissue is a type of loose connective tissue which has adipocytes, which not only stores reserve fats, but we also see that it acts as a heat insulator, right? So you need to mention these 2 points if you are writing the answer. So we see that they have thick fat so that it prevents the escape of heat from the body, and this helps them surviving low temperatures, right? So you need to write this, then only you will get 2 marks. That's amazing, Pandey gamers, that I was able to help you out, and both Ankita ma'am and I were able to help you out in your preparation. Stay with us, because as you all know, we will be helping you with your half-yearly exams and every other exam that's coming your way, right? BYJU'S has got you covered. Okay, clear? Very simple and easy. Ma'am, how do they store it? Is it natural? So the fat that they store, right, is stored as fat globules inside these cells called as adipocytes. So inside the adipocytes, these fat globules are stored, which in turn helps them store, or it also acts as an insulator, right? So now out of 15 marks, you have got 1 out of 15 correctly. Yes? Very good. Mesophil, Vinod Bacha, is a type of cell that you find in the leaves which are elongated like this and that have chlorophyll in them, right? So mesophil cells are a type of chlorophyll, the type of cells you find in the leaves. Ma'am, what is shock absorber? Shock absorber that is there is basically, when you talk about it, when you fall down, right? So imagine when you fall down, there is a certain level, so when you hit the ground, right? So we see that it can send a certain shock, right? It can maybe damage the body. Now there are certain vital organs like our kidneys and very other important organs which needs to be protected from that. So in this case, whatever shock that comes when you fall down or hurt yourself, right? All that gets absorbed by this so that the vital organs remain protected, right? So I hope all of you are clear in this. Okay. So now let's move on to the next one, which is match the following, right? Very simple, easy scoring topics, right? When we talk about match the following. So now let's quickly have a look at it, students. Now I know many of you here are watching this video for the first time, but students, I request you, all of you, right? Please make sure that you watch the theory classes first and then you come to it. Otherwise, it will become very difficult. Amit, Advika is paying attention in class. So you also pay attention, or if you don't want to pay attention today, you leave the class. It's okay. I'm not angry with you or anything. But today maybe you don't have mood to study, right? So it's okay. But Amit, I need your focus here. Otherwise, I'll be looking out for you. Okay, parenchyma cells. What is the correct match for parenchyma? We have thin-walled and packing cells. We have carbon fixation. Erenchyma is localized thickenings, buoyancy, and sclerenchyma, right? Yes, I will tell you what it is. Yes? B is equal to 1. Okay, B is equal to 1. How? A is equal to 4. Parenchyma is buoyancy. A is equal to 4. Parenchyma is buoyancy or erenchyma is buoyancy. Now for students who don't know what is buoyancy, simply put, buoyancy that is there is the ability to float, right? It is the ability to float. So parenchyma is sclerenchyma. Very good, Maria. I think Maria is the only one whose answer I see first, which is matched properly. Olma has also given me the correct answer. Parenchyma is a type of simple permanent tissue, right? So we see that it is a type of simple permanent tissue that is there, wherein we see that they have thin celled wall, right? And they act as packing cells. So correct match is already there. Now you have photosynthesis. Now photosynthesis is a process where carbon dioxide will combine with water to give you glucose, right? And we see here that this carbon dioxide is what is getting fixed, yes? So technically B is also correctly matched. B is equal to 2. But now you have arenchyma, right? What is this arenchyma? Okay, give me a simple way of thinking about this. Where will I find this arenchyma? Normally arenchyma that is there, we find them in aquatic plants, right? So we find them in aquatic plants, and we know that aquatic plants that are there have the ability to float on water, which is why we see here that the correct match would be 4 for arenchyma. It allows, right? We see that this right here allows these aquatic plants to float on water. Then we have collenchyma. Now collenchyma that is there again we see is a type of simple permanent tissue, right? Now we see that collenchyma that is there is again made up of, I would say, your living cells, and we see that they have irregular thickenings, right? That means that it's not uniformly distributed. The depositions that are there, they are not uniformly distributed, but rather they are found in certain regions or they are localized, right? Which is why the correct match is localized thickenings, leaving us with a type of permanent tissue here, which is nothing but sclerenchyma. So with this, everybody, we have made our correct match. Yes? Now at one go, when you started to give the answers, you did not read the full question and some of you made silly mistakes. Now many of you, if you want to admit, you tell me that, ma'am, I made silly mistakes because, as we all know, right? We know that we didn't read the full question. How many of you did that? Be honest with me, right? You didn't read pura ka pura question and then later on you have gone and made some silly mistakes. Yes? Ansh Bacha, that is not possible. You can watch the recorded video, right? You can watch the recorded video because Ankita ma'am has class even in the NEET channel, right? So it's very difficult. So I hope that you watch the recorded video later. Now moving on to the question 3. Question 3 is easy peasy now. Water hyacinth floats on water surface, right? Why? Now this again is a 2-mark question, and students who had this particular, whoever have had tissues for maybe your, periodic test 2, right? Unit test 2 that is there. I am sure this kind of a question would have come, right? You can tell me, ma'am, this question has come in my exam. See, Kanishk is telling me, ma'am, this came in my exam. Very good, right? So of course, these are very common questions that get asked. Now, when you talk about floating on water surface, we have already discussed. What is water hyacinth? It's a beautiful plant that you see right behind me, right? It's also called as water lily, right? And it's a very beautiful plant that is there, but also it has a very, however beautiful it is, normally water hyacinth that is there also has a huge backstory as well, right? And we see that water hyacinth that is there has the ability to float on water. Yes, and it is able to float on it because it has a specialized type of parenchyma cells called as arenchyma. Now, what is so special about arenchyma, or what is so special about this kind of parenchyma? Because in this kind of parenchyma, we see that they have large air cavities, right? They have large air cavities that are there, which have, which has air spaces in them that allows them to flow, right? Kind of like how if you don't know to swim, like how I don't know to swim, you'll put those, I forgot what it's called, those puffy things, right? You'll put a life vest and you know that on your shoulder pads you will put, and then you'll be floating. No matter what you do, even if you fall down inside, right? You'll still be able to float on it. That's how I survive in swimming pools, because I don't know how to swim. But we know that floaters, thank you for that, I forgot the name. They're called as floaters, right? You're able to float on it because of all the air that is there. Yes? Very good. Vanshika, very good, right? Naitik also says, ma'am, I don't know to swim, but sometimes. Theek hai. Very good, very good. So when you're writing the answer, 2 points. It has special type of arenchyma. They have air-filled spaces in them, which allows them to float. 2 marks, easy peasy. So there you go, all of you have scored 3 out of 15 questions, right? You've got 3 correctly out of 15, and I know the rest of it you will also anyway get, right? Now we'll quickly move on to the next one. Now the next question that is there is again a very simple question, right? Differentiate between parenchyma and sclerenchyma. Yes? Pragati Bacha, I am so sorry. I know I would have missed your question, but I know you would have given the answer. So sorry, okay? Dead and living. Very good. So first I will write your answers and then I am going to write the answer that I have, right? So sclerenchyma is made up of dead cells, okay? Parenchyma has living cells. Very good. What else is there? Very good. Budh has told me I'm DNL. Sclerenchyma is hard and rigid, but parenchyma is thin and delicate. Okay, I will combine Sonia and Abhimanyu's point and write hard and rigid and has thick cell walls. So hard, rigid, thick cell wall. This is, I missed that point, but I think this is thin cell wall, right? Thin cell wall. We have no intercellular space, where we have intercellular spaces and they are loosely packed. Very good. I'm super proud of all of you, right? Okay. Very good, Vanshika. Very good. Sclerenchyma is narrow. Okay, we see that they have a narrow lumen. We can write that. Present at soft parts. Very good, Ulma. Yes, they are present in the parenchyma we find in the soft parts of the plant, while on this side we find them in the hard parts or the rigid parts, right? Very good. Here I will add lignin point along with cell wall itself, right? No chlorophyll is present, while chlorophyll is present. Very good, very good. Yes. So when you're giving me answer, see, ideally if this question was for 3 marks, you have given me 3 points of difference, right? But function, very good, Abhimanyu. Exactly. So when you're writing points of difference, right? Write it in terms of structure, write it in terms of location, and write it in terms of function, right? Let me tell you one thing. Pura ka pura tissues chapter is based on structure, function, location, right? It makes it very simple and easy. So when you talk about structure of parenchyma, you've already discussed normally oval, round shaped cells which we find that have thin cell wall and large intercellular space, and they are all living cells. While here we know that they are long and narrow cells which have lignified cell wall and they have a narrow lumen, and these are made up of dead cells. We know that parenchyma that is there is found in the soft parts of the plant, while sclerenchyma is found in places which require a lot of support. When we talk about the functions of parenchyma, we know that some parts of it provide structural support, but mainly it plays a key role in storage. While here the main function is to provide mechanical support, right? So are we all clear? So lignified means that it has depositions of lignin in it, right? Because you know that the cell wall of sclerenchyma that is there has a lot of lignin, which is a chemical compound that we see, which is why we say it is lignified, right? This kind of questions, especially difference based, right? It can come for 3 marks, it can come for 5 marks also, because good number of pointers are there, right? So 3 marks is what I would ideally prefer. Ulma says, ma, parenchyma consists of unspecialized cells. See, I will not say unspecialized. I will say relatively unspecialized, because when compared to your collenchyma and sclerenchyma, they are relatively unspecialized. But if they are getting categorized as permanent tissue, we can't say it is fully unspecialized. No, because permanent tissues arise after the process of differentiation, which is why I prefer to always use the term preferably or relatively unspecialized. Yes? Diagram can be made, but don't make it unless and until last, right? Okay, everybody, you can take a screenshot very quickly. Yes? Quickly take a screenshot, students. Ma'am, collenchyma. Yes, Bani. Exactly. Very good. Students, if you are enjoying today's class, do not forget to hit the like button on this video, and do not forget to hit the subscribe button as well, right? Very, very important that you hit the like button and do not forget to subscribe as well. Okay, so to all my new students, I hope you are enjoying the class, because I know many of you are new and you are watching my class for the first time. So I hope all of you are enjoying the class as well. Very good, very good. So this is how you will write the answer, right? I always tell you, if differentiate, distinguish, all of this comes, you will have to put two tables and put it on either side. No, very, very important. Shivam, I think it's lysosome. Lysosome, that is, there is called as the suicide bag of the cell, which actually helps in getting rid of unwanted materials, right? Yes, yes. Very good, Vanshika, very good. Eosinophil is a type of WBC that we have, right? We know it's a type of WBC which we have inside our body. Yes? No problem. Don't say sorry in my class. I always tell you, never say sorry in my class because that's how you learn. Cambium is a type of tissue that arises as a result of secondary growth due to your lateral meristem that is there, right? No, Golgi does not have his own DNA. Yes? All right. Ma'am, does DNA have DNA? No, DNA does not have DNA in it. DNA is DNA, right? Coming back, yes? Let's have a look at this question where we have give reasons. Now, these are very important questions, right? Now, see, 5 marks question you will get. 1 mark each. Normal talk, kindly avoid, right? So, you'll have 1 mark to give me a give reason for each of it. And this is a very commonly asked question, right? Khwaja, good question, but I will take that after this. Shakuntala, after I finish explaining this, I will take your question, right? So now, of course, if you see, right, the first question is meristematic cells have a prominent nucleus and a dense cytoplasm, but they do not have a vacuole. Why do meristematic cells have no vacuole? Easy peasy. Answer is very simple, right? Meristematic tissues that are there have a dense cytoplasm and prominent nucleus, but they have no vacuoles. Why? Because they are actively dividing. What is the function of vacuole? To store food. Do meristematic tissues have time to, store food and everything? No. They are constantly utilizing the food, so they don't really require the vacuole, right? So because they are dividing continuously and they contribute towards growth. Easy peasy, 1 mark, all of you have scored already. Now the second question that we have here is, I will go back to the first slide. Intercellular spaces, right? Intercellular spaces are absent in sclerenchyma tissue. So Khwaja asked me, ma'am, what is the difference between intercellular and intracellular, right? In the meanwhile, students, you can give me the answer. Yes, and if you are watching this much later, you can skip to the part where the answer is there. Angel Bacha, you will find it on the BYJU'S website. You will also be able to find it on the app as well, right? So you will be able to find it on both places. So inter means between two cells, right? So if this is cell 1 and cell 2, this is intercellular. While intra means within the cell, right? Intra. So when you say inter-house competition, right? Inter-house competition means it is between two houses in your school. Intra-house means within students of the same house competition is happening. Easy peasy. Yes? So intercellular spaces are absent simply because we know that in the case of sclerenchyma tissue, we know that they have thick and lignified cells that have depositions of lignin, and along with that we observe that these cells are dead. And we know that they need to be tightly packed because of their function that they provide, that is to provide mechanical support, right? Very, very good. Yes? Okay. Now moving on to the next one. We get a crunchy and granular feeling when we chew pear fruit. How many of you, this is a slightly tricky question, which is why I'm going to answer this part, right? When you eat the pear fruit, how many of you have had pear first of all? I know that it's called something very unique in Hindi. Recently, Saurabh sir and Ankita ma'am told me it's called, I hope I'm saying this right, Nashpati, right? We say Nashpati, right, for pear. Am I right? For those of you who speak Hindi at home, I hope I'm getting this right. It's not papita. It is, yes, Nashpati. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Yes. See, learning new things, right? So as we all know, if you've had pear, no, you would have seen that especially when you look at the outer part, right? The outer part is a little bit hard, right? So when you look at it, as we all know, it's a little bit hard. Now, what is the reason behind it? Now, of course, in this case, right, we see that this is because of the presence of stone cells that are there. Now, this is little extra information when I say stone cells, but if I tell you the word sclerids, I am sure you will be clear, right? You have heard the word sclerids, right? But now how many of you are confused between, ma'am, sclerenchyma, sclerids? Then you are telling something called as fiber is also there. What is the difference between all of this? How many of you are truly confused with these three aspects? Ma'am, I know sclerenchyma. I thought sclerenchyma, sclerid is more or less the same thing, right? We assume it is the same thing. We just say, oh ma'am, I'm using another word for sclerenchyma. So let me tell you that first and foremost, sclerids, sclerenchyma, and you have fibers, right? If you think about it, in your xylem and phloem, you would have learnt about phloem fibers, and you would have heard about xylem fibers, right? Yes, we've heard about all of this, right? So now first and foremost, we know what is sclerenchymatous cells. They are these long cells that you find. Now there are two aspects of it, right? One is if they are a little more, right? So if we see that if they are a little more elongated and they are a little more narrower than normal, one type of sclerenchyma is what we call as fiber. While the other type of cell that is there, which is formed by deposition of this lignin, is what we call as sclerids, right? So sclerids that are there are basically another type of sclerenchyma, you could say. Yes? Okay. Why bacha mahi? Did you, okay, I understand that question answers might be a little tough and a little boring to you because you've not watched the explanation, right? So if you've not watched the explanation part, I request you to please go ahead and watch the explanation chapter 1 so that it will help you out, okay? Yes. Tanush, are you asking for this particular chapter or in general? Yes? Let me know. Now the next one that is there is going to be branches of a tree move and bend freely, right? They'll move freely as we have whenever there is high wind. Why is it that when a strong wind comes, how is it that it's not flying away or it is not falling apart, right? So what exactly happens? Yes, it is because of a type of simple permanent tissue which is called as collenchyma, right? So we see that collenchyma that is there is made up of elongated cells, and of course we see in this particular case, we see here that they have irregular thickenings, right? Reduced intercellular spaces, and we know that their main, especially we find them at the leaf stalk and in the stem, and it provides mechanical support and flexibility. So whenever you hear the word flexibility, you tell yourself this is collenchyma, right? Very simple and easy. Now quickly to take some questions from the live chat, right? So first and foremost, Tushar Bacha, what is it that you are not understanding? You let me know, right? Secondly, for students asking for one shot, a current one shot will be done later on in the month. But in case if you want a one shot immediately, you can watch Ankita ma'am's video which is already available on the channel, right? Yes. Canaliculus, connective tissue, see that comes as a part of it, right? We'll not separately call it out, right? We know that we'll not separately call it out. Ma'am, explain this part once again. Absolutely, right? So when you look at it, right, when you look at a leaf, right, we know that a leaf is connected to a stalk. And despite the winds that are there, however it flows, the leaves will go back and forth, but it will never fall apart. That is because at this particular point, we find a specialized kind of cells, which I will roughly draw, which is your collenchyma tissue, right? Now your collenchyma that is there is a type of simple permanent tissue. Yes, and we know that they have irregular thickenings. That means that it is not uniform. In the corners you will find depositions of lignin and pectin and all of that, right? So now of course we see that because of this it provides flexibility to the plant, right? And that's how we see that even though they're able to move back and forth, they don't really fall apart, right? Ma'am, intercalary henna, that is intercalary meristematic tissue. This we are talking about the, see, it's not like only you will find one tissue. We find a combination of tissues, right? That's what makes up a different structure, right? Dhriti, they are more or less elongated in shape, right? They are more or less elongated. Very good, very good. Tendrils that are there, Tendrils that are there are basically modified parts of the leaf, right? So in some plants like your pea plant, right, we see that the leaves that are there, some parts of the leaf get modified to form this kind of spring-like structure, you could say, called as tendril, which allows in the case of climbers to grow and get supported to mechanical support, right? Avika, you can use that, but I would ideally recommend Selena, right? If you're an ICSE student, Selena is the best textbook you could follow. Amazing questions that are there. Yes? Okay, but Oswald is also good. You can, I would recommend it. But sometimes some questions might be a little too tricky, but don't get disheartened about that, right? You will be able to solve it. Okay, now moving on to question number 5, right? Question number 5, fifth part of this particular question. It is difficult to pull out the husk of a coconut tree. Why is it difficult to pull out husk of a coconut tree? We know this, right? Simply because the husk of the coconut tree is made up of a dead kind of tissue called as sclerenchyma, which we know that is made up of what we say, that is there, which is mainly made up of your sclerenchymatous tissue that has depositions of lignin in it, provides mechanical support, right? Okay, very good, very good. So this way, we have discussed all of it, right? Phloem, Namita, I will explain towards the end, right? Because we need to finish it in 45 minutes, which is why I'm also going to pick up the pace a little bit, yes? So now, of course, in this particular case, right, as we all know, we see that if you have given the answers and the exact explanation we discussed, you will get a total of 5 marks, right? So you will get 1 mark per give reason and a total of 5 marks. So for those of you who are very new, like Sharvari, I hope you are enjoying the class. Angel Bacha, I will try. I have a question based on epithelial tissue, so I'll take the explanation then. So very quickly, we will move on to this question number 6. We have 10 more questions, half an hour, so we'll pick up the pace. And once the live session is done, right? So once the live session is done, the recorded video will be available on the channel for you to always come back and watch it. So don't worry about it, okay? All right. Debasmita, can I do towards the end of the class, bacha? I hope so, right? So we're talking about which structure protects the plant body against invasion of parasites, right? So we're talking about the protective tissue in plants. Which is the protective tissue that we see in plants? They are not saying trees, right? We know how cork formation happens. Cork also eventually that is there is formed from this particular tissue that is there, which is nothing but epidermis. Very good. Cell wall, okay, but we are talking about tissues, right? So we know that epidermis tissue that is there not only helps in providing mechanical support, also helps in parasitic invasion. It also, we know that there's a waxy cuticle. So if this is my epidermis, which is a continuous layer of epidermal cells, there's a waxy cuticle, there's a waxy layer on top of it, which we call as the cuticle, that also prevents the loss of water, right? So this normally is a 1 mark question. So you will get 1 mark here. Easy peasy. Yes? Now moving on to question number 7, which is a very important concept that you have to understand, right? That is, define the process of differentiation and give me any 2 examples of simple and complex permanent tissue. Now, very honestly, students, I want you to tell me in the live class, how many of you are truly confused with the concept of differentiation? The question is, define the process of differentiation. So how many of you have a rough understanding of what this is, or you are like, ma'am, I don't know, right? Yes. I don't want to pick up the speed too much also and be too fast, right? I am trying to be as slow as I can. Subairin, I will explain, don't worry. Subairin towards the end, right? Yes. Ma'am, don't know. I am very happy that you're being very honest here, right? So I love the fact that all of you are being very honest. So let me tell you, I know for those of you who know the answer, I'm proud of you and I know it, right? But let's understand the basics of it. So it is kind of like clay modeling, right? Now, how many of you remember clay modeling? I'm sure that in your lower grades, right? How many of you had clay modeling as an art subject in your class? Tell me, you can let me know in the chat. How many of you had clay modeling? I had it, I remember. I was, at that time when I was in 4th grade, I was very bad at it, wherein I could not do anything, right? So in clay modeling, what do? Many of you have clay modeling, right? Very good. See, sometimes I feel I've become very old to a point when, sometimes I'm like, oh, did they really have it or no? So, but good. All of you have clay modeling. It's fun, right? Very simple and easy. Yeah, it was such a fun thing. I know. So in clay modeling, what happens? It's okay. If you were bad at it, it's fine. See, but you have to explore your artistic skills, right? So let me tell you something very simple and easy about differentiation. Differentiation is kind of like clay modeling in your real life. What happens in clay modeling? You are given a lump of clay, right? You're given a lump of clay, and what do? You make it undergo certain process, and eventually you make whatever you feel like, right? So imagine I made a jug out of it. Yes? So it was a lump, but now I have specialized it and I made it into something that is usable for me. Yes? So here this was unspecialized. That means it was just a lump, right? That means that it had no, I will not say no shape, yes, but I'll say that it had no specific shape. It could become anything it wants, right? So at this point, if you see something unspecialized, like a lump of clay, has become a specialized version where we have got a jug right now. Now you think of it in the aspect of cells, right? So we see that there are some cells which are unspecialized. Now when you say unspecialized, that does not mean that it is a lump of cells. It is just that that cell does not have a specific function, a specific location dedicated to it, right? But we see that eventually what happens is, due to some chemical changes within the cell, that unspecialized cell, it could be anything. It could become, see, it's kind of like how our future is, no? When we are students, you could be a doctor, you could be an engineer, you could go be a teacher, you could be a banker, you could be an investment analyst, an influencer, YouTuber, whatever you want, right? So here in this point, what do we observe? It's kind of like that, right? So as we all know, the meristematic tissue has a shape and size and everything, but no specialized function, location and everything. But when it undergoes the process of differentiation, it acquires a specific location, structure and function, right? So it becomes specialized. So in this case, we see that in this particular case, your meristematic tissue undergoes the process of differentiation to become your permanent tissue. Now, permanent tissue that is there is going to be of two kinds, where we have simple permanent and complex permanent, right? So simple permanent tissue is made up of same type of cells. Complex permanent tissue have more than one, right? More than one type of cell, so it's made up of different types of cells, right? So we see that in simple permanent we have parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. Complex may we have xylem and phloem. Yes, exactly, Vinod. Meristematic tissue is like, it's high time I up my game and get some responsibility. Yes, exactly. So it's pretty much as simple as that, right? So when you're writing the answer, you just need to make sure you have the definition with you. And of course, you can write the examples. Okay? Tushar, I know that maybe you have a little more edge towards physics, but bacha, it's okay. Don't worry. Avika, which part are you not able to understand? You let me know clearly. Maybe recalling is a little tough for you, right? Recalling is becoming tough, which means that you have to spend a little more time in active recall. Does not mean that you don't know the concept, right? In tissues, I'll tell you all. Let me tell all of my students. Tissues is a very easy chapter, but it relies a lot on active recall, which is why I need you all to make sure that just pay attention to that, right? Okay. Now again, we have question number 8, which is a match the following. I will truly not keep up to my promise of 45 minutes, but hopefully under 1 hour I finish. So we have match the following. Let's have a look at the first one, right? Chapter is completed on the channel, but we'll do multiple revisions. Don't worry. So first one, fluid connective tissue. In सब में fluid connective tissue कौन सा है? So connective tissue that is there, as we all know, right, is going to be something that connects different parts of the body or binds different parts. And in this case, the example of fluid, that means that it is fluid in nature. So we see that example of fluid connective tissue is blood. Easy peasy. Next one, this fills up the space inside the organs. So in this particular case, we know that when we talk about filling up space, It's kind of like how you have bubble wrap, no? Just like how you have bubble wrap that comes when you order your packages from different e-commerce platforms, right? So we know that when you buy a computer or whenever you want to buy a phone, it will come wrapped in bubble wrap, no? So it fills up the space inside and no damage happens. So just like that, we have bubble wrap inside our body. And this bubble wrap is nothing but the areolar tissue that is there, which is an example of loose connective tissue. Yes, Shivant, you can ask me your question. Next, we have striated muscle. Striated means stripes, right? That means there is alternating dark and light bands. Alternating dark and light bands are seen in which kind of muscle? Nishant, is it seen in cartilage? No. Where do we say? Exactly, Dhriti. You will never forget areolar tissue now. Very good. It is correctly matched already. It is your skeletal muscles, right? They have the alternate dark and light bands. Now you have adipose layer, right? Or you have your adipose tissue, which is another example of loose connective tissue. Aratrika, you can ask me your question. Please ask me your question. Okay. So we know that adipose tissue is also a layer of fat, right? And it's found beneath the skin. Hence, it is the subcutaneous layer. Then what do we have? We have surface of joints, right? What is a joint? A point where two bones meet. Surface made to prevent the two bones from rubbing against each other and getting friction. What do we see? We know that at the surface, we will find cartilage, right? Yes. Okay, Jaba's question is very good, but I will take that question in just some time. I'll finish this part, okay? Last but not the least, stratified squamous. Strata means layers. Squamous means going one on top of the other. Stratified squamous is seen where? Exactly, stratified squamous we observe in the skin. That way you have made your matches correctly, right? So well done all of you, well done. Very proud, very proud. Okay. Shivant, you wanted to ask me a question. Okay, yes, please ask me your doubt, right? Okay, ma'am, doesn't meristematic tissue have a specialized location? Very good. Meristematic tissue is found in the growing regions of the plant, right? Mainly what happens, growing regions that are there is not that, see at one point what happens, it starts out as a lump and as it grows, just wherever growth happens, your meristematic tissue is there, right? And eventually the only thing it has to do is to grow. So it will keep growing and growing and growing. Maybe it has an initial starting point but continuously growing. At one point it has to stop and settle there and get that location, right? So that is where we have that differentiation process happening. So I hope I was able to clarify that part. Now moving on to question number 9. For students who had doubts in epithelial tissue, this is for you. So we have 4 questions, right? 4 questions, 4 marks, 1 mark each. What is the lining of blood vessels made up of, right? What is the lining of blood vessels made up of? Shivant, that is collenchyma, right? What is the specified location of collenchyma? Stalk of leaves, right? Yes. Bone is a connective tissue which comes under the category of dense connective tissue that is there, right? Very good, very good. So now we are talking about lining. So here we are talking about protective tissue in animals, right? So we are talking about protective tissue in animals and we know that that is nothing but your epithelial tissue that is there, which are basically cells which form a continuous layer, right? And we know that we have 4 kinds of it. So when you talk about what is found in the inner lining, we find simple squamous epithelium, right? Squama means flat. So these are cells which are flattened in nature, right? They are flat cells and they have a prominent nucleus. And we see that they make up the inner lining of the alveoli and the inner lining of blood vessels, right? And because they are flat, it also allows for diffusion to happen. Easy. Next question. So this answer here is squamous. Next one is, what is the lining of small intestine made up of, right? What is the lining of small intestine made up of? Very quickly. Yes? Inner lining of small intestine. Barsha Bacha, ask me your doubt. Yes? Okay. Ma'am, does meristematic tissue produce all types of cell in plants like permanent tissue or replicate itself? A skin, it replicates itself and eventually when it's time for differentiation, it makes up the other permanent tissue that are there. So both. Very good. So we know that inner lining of small intestine is made up of columnar cells, right? So we see that it is made up of columnar cells which are pillar shaped cells, and we know that it also facilitates absorption. Yes? Now next one, what is the inner lining of kidney tubules made up of, right? What are the inner linings of kidney tubules made up of? Very quickly, we find this also in the salivary glands, right? Very good. We find the cuboidal epithelium. So we know that they are cube-shaped cells which are present that also provide mechanical support. Yes? Angel Bacha, I think you are asking me about epithelial tissue, right? Pragati, Tanush. See, it's not like I am some superhuman and I remember all of this, okay? I also always have to, see, every time I come to take class, no, it's not like I will come swinging my hands and I just know everything. If I admit that, then I would say that I don't want to sound arrogant, yes? I always prep before class. Even if I know, even if that is the 100th time I am teaching it, I will still read and come. Right? Because there will be some interesting doubt, all of you, right? All of you ask, right? So I always make it a point that I do my reading. Yes? Ma'am, is skin cell dead? The upper layer of the skin cell is dead, right? Upper layer, this part of the skin is dead. But there are cells which are living on the inside. Yes? Okay. No problem if you are not able to recall answers fast. The more and more you practice, you will be able to recall it, right? Angel Bacha, you will have to send it to me once again, right? Yes. Last one is, where are the epithelial cells with cilia found, right? So we know that ciliated columnar epithelium is a type of columnar epithelium which have cytoplasmic hair-like extensions called as cilia, right? And we know that this is normally found in the inner lining of the windpipe, not the lungs. It is found in the windpipe or the trachea, right? And it also helps in the back and forth movement. Very, very important. What is cilia? Cilia is nothing but hair-like cytoplasmic projections, or you can say protoplasmic projections that move back and forth, right? They lash back and forth. Yes? Very good. We find it there as well. Ma'am, do meristematic tissues change its position when it turns to permanent? It will not change. Eventually, right, it will take up that location, right? So that meristematic tissue is no longer permanent. Okay? All right. So with this Pushpa Bacha, I just explained full epithelial tissue, right? But in case if you still have doubts, you can go back and watch my video on all the animal tissues done at one shot. You will be able to understand, right? Cilia is found in human beings. Yes, we find it, okay? So this is the answer. You write all of it. You are going to get 4 marks. Now we'll move on to the last 5 questions, right? Last 5 questions. Now I might pick up the pace because I have only 5 questions left. Tamil gaming. Why? What happened? Q. Okay. Differentiate between voluntary and involuntary muscles. Give me an example of each type, right? So let's talk about voluntary muscles versus involuntary muscles, right? So when you talk about voluntary, yes, voluntary can be controlled, right? So we see that it can be controlled. While on the other hand, cannot be controlled. Yes, cannot be controlled. Now give me one example. Voluntary is nothing but your skeletal muscles that are there, right? Here you can say your cardiac muscles and your smooth muscles which are there, which are examples of involuntary, right? Very simple and easy, right? So now of course when you are writing the answer, please make sure that you draw a table on either side. This can come for 2 marks. Most often than that, right? Because mainly they're just asking you to give you 2 examples. So you can write in the major points and there you go, 2 marks easily. Yes? Ma'am, smooth muscles are visceral. Yes, visceral means they're part of the internal organs that are there. So you can say visceral. Shivant, not anytime soon, right? So because for your half yearly, only till tissues it is there. After that, I will go to the next one. Pushpa, tracheid is a part of your xylem. Okay. Question number 11. A person met with an accident in which two long bones of the hand were dislocated. That means they were moved out of position. What could be the reason? 1 mark here. So first you give me the answer to that. If a person, right, if a person had two bones in his hand, there is a dislocation in the hand. That means what has happened right now? What has happened right now? They have specifically said there is a dislocation. This is exactly what we mean as competency questions, right? Very, very important. This is what we mean by competency. I knew this. Anjali has told me, ma'am, fracture has happened. Okay. Cartilage could be damaged. Okay. Angel has told me, ma'am, ligament will break down. Okay, very good. I can see now there are people telling, ma'am, cartilage has gotten damaged. There are many people who are saying, ma'am, ligament has gotten damaged, right? Okay. Ma'am, this is difficult to understand. Tamil gaming bacha, if animal tissues is difficult for you, I request you to go and watch the video where I have explained it for you, okay? Very good, Dhriti, very good, very good, yes. So first and foremost, students, understand the difference between a fracture and a dislocation, right? So if this is my bone, right? So I am going to draw such a cliche bone I am drawing. Understand that your bones don't look like this in your body. I'm just drawing this for reference, right? Now, if a bone breaks, right? If there is damage made to the bone directly, that means you have had a fracture, right? But that is why we know that the bone has to repair itself. But now we are saying that two bones were dislocated. That means what? That means that these bones that are there were supposed to be together. Something was keeping them together. But now that is not there. And these guys have lost their position. So if they have lost their position, the thing that is connecting it is what is gone, right? So what is the thing that is connecting it gone? That is nothing but your ligament, right? So ligament is what you see right here, that connects different bones together and that holds the bones in place. Cartilage is not something that will get affected here because cartilage is found at the surfaces, right? Which prevents the harsh rubbing of the bones, right? So it's not cartilage but rather it is ligament. Okay, that is the answer. Next one. If I take a sugar cane and I remove it from the field, right? Or if I cut the tip of the sugar cane, I still see that my sugar cane is able to grow in length. What is the reason behind this, right? What is the reason behind my sugar cane being able to grow at such a length? Yes? Very good, Anshika. Very good. My meristematic tissue divides itself. Ideally, we find meristematic tissue at the growing tips, right? But here I've cut off the tip. The growing part, I took it off. So now what will happen? Yes, very good. Not apical meristem. Now you have gotten confused. I confused you a little bit and you have gotten confused. You're like, ma'am, no, correct. Apical meristem only. Right? Okay. So now, of course, in this particular case, we know that even though the tip has gone, we know that it is present at the nodes and the internodal region. We have the intercalary meristem, right? So at the node and the internode region, we have the intercalary meristem that allows for the elongation of the stem. Which is why even if I cut off my apical meristem, my stem of the sugarcane is able to grow because of my intercalary meristem that is there, right? Very simple and easy. So in this you will get 2 marks for giving me the answer. Yes? It is found there also, Vinod. We find it in the inner linings of the, not in the tubules. That inner lining of your ovarian tubule. Ovarian tubes mein you find it, right? Hoga midterms ke liye series aayegi. Don't worry. Why are you spamming Sasuke? Kyun? I know you're a Naruto fan, but don't spam. Collagen is a type of protein that you mainly find in your areolar tissue, right? Okay, now moving on. Now I'm going to pace it up a little because we've already discussed this. State 2 functions of adipose tissue. We already know adipose tissue is a type of loose connective tissue which is made up of adipocytes that stores fat and of course acts as a heat insulator, right? And forms a padding around the skin, the kidneys. Easy peasy. 2 marks you will get this particular question, right? Very good, very good. Now moving on to the next one, which is name the types of muscles that you find. This is a 1 mark question, okay? You have to just name the muscles. What are the 3 types? Jaldi, fatafat se batao. 3 types. Ma'am, intercalary needs soil to grow or no? See, for some time, understand that soil that is there is basically how your water and your nutrients are reaching your cells, right? After one point, if it is not there, they will not be able to survive. Logic. Very good. 3 types, we have skeletal muscles, your striated muscles, also known as your voluntary muscles. You have your smooth muscles which are there, which is unstriated, also called as your visceral muscles, or we also call them as involuntary. Then you have your cardiac muscles which are there, which are your heart muscles, specialized type of it that is there. Now, these are the explanation slides, right? So, everybody make sure that you take a screenshot. This will come for 3 marks in case if you have to elaborate, right? So, the characteristics is something that you will need to remember, okay? Now, moving on to question number 14. Define or describe areolar connective tissue, structure and function. When I say areolar connective tissue, you know, right? Areolar connective tissue is bubble wrap. That means it's a type of packaging tissue that is there, right? And we know that it fills up the space inside the organs. Very good. It supports your internal organs, helps with repair. Yes. And of course, we know that it has a lot of important components which are there. So when you're writing the answer, you need to write about its structure and all the functions that it carries out, right? Tanush, this does not have air in it. That's your air and kaima, right? Ma'am, difference between muscle and skin. Muscle is made up of muscular tissue. Skin is epithelial tissue along with various other tissues that are there. Skin is an organ. So they are made up of different kinds of tissue. Muscle is a tissue. Yes? Define cardiac. Cardiac is a muscle that makes up your heart, which continuously contracts and relaxes. Yes? Adipose tissue, angel bacha, rewind to the very beginning. I have explained that point. Now last question. I have only 3 more minutes because Ankita ma'am has class in the NEET channel. So I'm going to pace it up a little, right? So now of course we're going to talk about 2 parts where what are the 2 components of blood and why is blood considered as a type of connective tissue, right? So we know that blood that is there has 2 components. It has a So when we talk about blood, we know that blood that is there has a cellular part and we know that blood that is there has a fluid part, right? So the fluid part that is there is nothing but your plasma, while your cellular part includes your RBC, your WBC and your platelets, right? So these are the different kinds which are there. And WBCs may also, you have different types of WBCs which we will learn later on, right? Then of course in this particular case we say that blood is considered to be a connective tissue because all the cells that you find here, right? They are found suspended in the matrix or we find them suspended in the fluid matrix and it connects different parts of the body together. So it is a connective tissue, but your matrix is fluid, hence fluid connective tissue. Yes? So when you're writing the answer, these are some pointers that you will have to keep in mind, right? Very, very important pointers that you will have to keep. So students, with this, I'm going to give you a homework question, right? Now, many of you, I think Benny Vlogs was asking me to explain xylem phloem. Maybe I'll do a short recorded video for xylem and phloem so that it will help you out. But in the meanwhile, for students who have been here and who had a lot of fun today, right? Please make sure that you give me the answer for this homework question where you need to tell me the cells that make up xylem as well as phloem, right? The video for plant tissue is already available with Ankita ma'am's explanation. You can watch that video. Notes for this particular video will be available on the Telegram channel, so you can check that out. So students, I really hope all of you enjoyed today's class. Any further doubts, you let me know in the comments of this video so that you find this helpful, right? And of course, if you like this class today and what we do on the channel, please do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Do not forget to hit the like button on this video as well, right? And if you want the timetable, go to the very beginning of this video, you will be able to find it. So thank you so much students for being a part of today's class. I will see you all soon, but up until then, take care, lots of love and bye-bye.